Good night. My name is Oscar Cepeda. I am industrial engineer, MBA from Central Queensland University in Australia. And tonight I will talk about strategy. Strategy is more than a concept. It's not that related with the concept that we got about strategic planning. Strategy is the difference between survive or die. Why? Because strategies, as we've known, there are these feelings, these targets, that goals that we pursue and striving. It doesn't matter if the efforts that we have to do in that matter. Planning is different to strategy regarding the characteristics. When you're planning, you are considering a group of actions or specific goals or a group of activities that you have to perform in order to get a specific target or a specific goal. Strategy, that is the difference between planning and strategy. Strategy is further than that. It's further than consider the environment or the externalities or internalities regarding a company or a firm or a business. There is not a detailed plan or program of the steps. Why? It's quite simple. There is no detailed plan or program steps because strategy is something that the people keep really inside of each person. If I pursue some kind of how can I say that ideal or wish or some kind of really thing that I really decided. Usually I do not have a group of steps regarding this wish. So that's why it's not a detailed plan. It's the recognition and ability of opportunities. The strategy is an ability. Why? If we see, for instance, the life of popular artists or popular actors, for example, we can talk about, I don't know, maybe Madonna, for example. Madonna is a girl which is successful already. She organized a world tour, and she just earned a lot of money because of that kind of tours. But she has the ability to recognize the opportunities, because when she arrives at 19 years old to New York, she has anything or something that represents some kind of advance compared with another person. She just only she and that's it. So she starts to recognize all the things that she should get in order to succeed in the future. So it's a kind of ability to recognize all these opportunities, all these options that we got regarding my object. on my target, and go further to the opportunities. Because, for example, if we talk about again about Madonna, she has a really a hope in his life, which was being succeed. Regarding this really desire that she got inside of his heart, or inside of his mind, she usually went further at the opportunities, because this opportunity is going to this or specific level, but she's pursuing something else further to this opportunity that she already got. So usually this ability of recognition is useful in order to recognize the further another opportunities that people should use in order to get their objective in the future. There are 3 or 4 common elements related with the concept of a strategy. The first one is that the strategy has goals that are simple, consistent, and long-term. For instance, if I pursue the target to be an engineer, for example, this target by themselves is quite simple, being engineer. But the single-minded commitment to a clearly recognized goal that was pursued steadfastly over a substantial part of their lifetime. That means that the goals related with the strategy that every person have is that are usually long term. So probably their strategies are not like short term orientation or something that will be immediately. So usually the goal is simple, is clear, being engineer, for example, but is long term. So being engineer should need a space of time relatively long. So usually these targets, instead of being simple, are long term. The second element is the profound understanding of the competitive environment. If we talk about, for example, the example of my case, I can start to think about it. The bunch of people that probably pursue the same target, being engineer. So the ability to understand the competitive environment means, for example, that I can recognize or understand what are the possible competitors in engineering area, which is a kind of special ability. That's why in order to be different or offer something different than just only the engineering by themselves, that's why I studied overseas a master degree. But it's because the profound understanding of competitive engineering environment tell me that I have to offer something different to my competitors or the other industrial engineers. That's why choose another strategy in order to be more successful than my competitors. Objective appraisal of resources. This is related with my resources, all the stuff that I should need or should use in order to get my target. It has a lot of characteristics, like, for example, economics, traveling, culture. There are a lot of stuff related with the objective appraisal. Effectiveness in explosion of internal threats while protecting areas of weakness. Let's have a look at this sentence. It has two elements. In one side, strengths. On the other hand, weakness. In one side, the strengths will offer the abilities to being successful. In my case, for example, in my particular case, will be being engineer. I have to explode as much as I could in order to get my target. On the other hand, the weakness. For instance, I've got a little bit weakness relating with the, I don't know, my maybe mathematics. It's a weakness area in my case, but I have to protect it, and I have to be, I have to get many efforts in order to protect this area of weakness, exploring or expanding my strengths. The fourth characteristic is the effective implementation. This effective implementation is something that is implicit in the person. There is something that just only arises by themselves. When I decided to go overseas, it was an effective implementation of my strategy, which was, okay, I am engineer, but I'm gonna offer something that gives me the difference between other industrial engineers, which was my second language from one side, and the other side will be my master's degree. So the effective implementation was the combination of those factors: language on one side and masters on the other side. So these two elements together was the effective implementation in my case, in my particular case. There are another characteristics related with the concept of strategy. The first one is the role of a strategy in a success can be made in relation to most fields of human endeavor. This gives me the grips in the concept of strategy. Human endeavor are all these necessities or all these desires that every person has really inside, and usually there are some kind of private information, which is, or my desire, my real desire is go further or go overseas, but I do not need to start to talk about most of the time because of that. So human behavior is related with all these desires and all these thinkings that are really profound in your mind or in your heart. Strategies that are built on the basic four elements almost always play an influential role. They are high achievers in a competitive area, such as Madonna has these four elements. a clear goal, effective implementation, really careful achievement with the resources. All this stuff together makes a high achiever. So if we analyze the life of the people who is really successful, in most of the case has these four elements that we seen before. All those who have achieved outstanding success in their careers are seldom those who possess the greatest innate abilities. The thing is that people who has the ability to recognize all this stuff or all these opportunities can identify the resources that he need and so on. Usually some are related with people who is achiever. And usually the people, even I've got another reflection about it. For example, there are people on the streets that has really low level of education, like primary school or secondary school, and regardless their scholarity or their level of school, they are really successful. So it happens the opposite way. There are people with PhD or PhD degrees or postgraduate degrees that do not are really successful. Why? Because these elements that we seen before are innate. There are something which is part of the people or particular persons who has the ability to be successful. Success has gone to those who manage their careers most effectively, typically by combining the four strategic factors mentioned before. As I told you, that persons are goal focused. They have the ability to understand all the environment and get seeing the resources that they need, and also have an effective implementation of those actions in order to get the objective. But we are talking about strategy by themselves. But what happened with the SWOT analysis? Remembering, the SWOT analysis has four categories: strengths, weakness, opportunities, and threats. In other languages, the SWOT analysis is called FODA or DOFA, which is the same thing. It has these four elements. The strengths and weakness are related to the internal environment, and the last two, opportunities and threats, are related to the external environment. There are the difference between SWOT analysis and strategic analysis. But which is better between SWOT and strategic analysis? Is kind of hard to say. I've got here an example. Is Steve Jobs a strength or a weakness for Apple? As both founder and reincarnator of Apple, few major companies owe so much to a single person. Yet, having suffered pancreatic cancer and the subject of continuing health concerns, Steve Jobs is also a critical source of vulnerability for Apple. Why? Because of their health status. That was the vulnerability of Apple. because the thinker of the Apple company is Steve Jobs, and he's sick or almost died. So these factors are the difference between strength and weakness for just one company, Apple. There are two main lessons um, for the analysis SWOT compared with the strategic analysis. The first one is less important, a careful identification of the external and external factors followed by an appraisal of their implications. So it doesn't matter if we got a bunch of internal and external factors. If we do not perform an appraisal study of these implications, what happens if this stuff happen? Or what happens if we do just only ignore this stuff? There are the implications that we have to analyze. And the second lesson of this comparison is in terms of the strategy approach, it is a simple two-way classification of internal and external factors. It means that it's just only in two ways, internal and external, and just analyze these two stuff. But if we perform a strategic analysis, we can go further. This regarding the strategy analysis. There is another concept related with the strategy analysis and is strategic fit. But what is a strategic fit? There is an important notion of the concept of strategy. There is a link between the firm or business or corporation with its external environment. The strategic fit is these actions that we got in one side applied to the organization of the firm. It has to fit together in order to be successful. For instance, I've got here an example. General Motors long-term decline is a consequence. Long-term decline means shut down the plants, shut down the fabrication of cars. Is a consequence of a strategy that has failed to break away from its long-established ideas about multi-brand market segmentation and adapt to the changing market for automobiles. They choose a strategy which was get a lot of brands, many cars of different brands, different shapes, different types, different characteristics, because they think in that time that it should be successful for a day in order to get more options on the market. So they fail. They fail because many things happen around the world. For instance, Chinese are build cars more cheaper. Also, Taiwanese people are build car with a reasonable quality, more cheaper than General Motors. And these two factors impact directly in the car industry at the United States. That's why General Motors have to decline, has had to decline in that time. Many companies have failed to align their strategies to their internal resources and capabilities in the opposite way. The strategies or the thinking that the CEOs of the company have to fit with the resources that we already got in order to get succeed. That's why I got this example. Nintendo in the coming years will be whether it possesses the financial and technological resources to continue and compete head to head with Sony and Microsoft in the market of video game consoles, and they already didn't. But why? Because the strategic fit doesn't work properly. The strategies compared with the internal resources and capabilities doesn't fit together. That's why Nintendo couldn't compete head-to-head with Sony and Microsoft. The principles of strategic fit extend to organizational design, what is called contingency theory, which is another theory that we can study in the management classes. The origins of the strategy word is from the military word. The term strategy came to the Greek word strategia, that means general strategy. There is a book which is quite interesting. The Art of the War is quite long mentioned in some movies and whatever. Talk about strategy. Strategy usually is going further the general interest. The only objective that this book proposes is the general has to win the war. They won't consider the possibility of lose at all. And the strategic decisions in both worlds, military and business, have the three common characteristics. First of all, they are important. Second, they involve a significant commitment of resources. And third, they are not easily reversible. I already got an example. For instance, if we are in a war, in a combat, the general decide to get some resources in order to win the war, isn't it? If I want to win the war, I have to sacrifice a bunch of resources that I already got. Doesn't matter if I lose people or if I lose something, but the only target that I really pursue is win the war. So that's why they are not that easily reversible, because I have to sacrifice something in order to win or get something else. And in the slides there are another information which is related with the strategy concept. This is an example of second language class. I hope that you should I have to finish saying that the concept of strategy today are common to definitions of business strategy. Is the notion that the strategy is focused on achieving certain goals, that the critical actions that make up a strategy involve allocation of resources. As we told you before, we have to consider the four elements: resources, goals, implementation, and the other element. And that strategy implies some consistency, integration, or cohesiveness of decisions and actions. That means the particular interests are higher than general interest. Doesn't matter what I have to do or what I should do, but the most important thing is my interest over the particular or general interest.